How do you interrogate a witness whose testimony is entirely self-constructed? If an entire narrative is filtered through the guilt-ridden mind of one specific character, the events playing out on stage become highly suspect. Tennessee Williams codified this unreliability. He called his concept plastic theater. He explicitly rejected the photographic realism of the early 20th century stage, arguing that exact replicas of daily life failed to capture human experience. Instead, he morphs the physical room into a psychological landscape. The stage directions mandate dim lighting, translucent walls, and recurring musical motifs. These are not atmospheric embellishments. They are the architectural manifestations of a mind selectively recalling its own past. The physical space literally warps depending on the emotional weight of a specific memory. In his opening monologue, the narrator, Tom Wingfield, outlines the exact contract the audience is entering. He states, "I give you truth in the pleasant disguise of illusion." In a memory play, establishing an objective, factual timeline is a pointless exercise. The distorted, deeply subjective experience of the narrator is the only reality that matters. This distortion acts as a tool for accuracy. Tom's memory isolates the psychological core of his family. The expressionistic set and dreamlike interactions strip away irrelevant daily details, leaving only the deep, raw emotional truths of their existence. That assumes Tom is acting in good faith. Tom is the sole architect of this universe. He controls the lighting, he triggers the music, and he supplies the dialogue of the people he left behind. He is the very definition of an unreliable narrator. We must view this entire theatrical structure as a self-serving psychological defense mechanism. Tom abandoned his mother and his disabled sister. Constructing this specific version of events allows him to retroactively absolve himself of that crushing guilt. If we accept this premise, the extreme characterizations of his family make logical sense. If his mother is an unbearable, nagging tyrant, and his sister is impossibly, dangerously fragile, his choice to abandon them becomes an act of necessary self-preservation rather than a cruel desertion. The text demands we read the Glass Menagerie not as a reliable historical record of what happened in a St. Louis apartment, but as a real-time psychological confession happening entirely inside Tom's mind. To parse that confession, we have to recognize the structural split in Tom's character. He exists as two entities simultaneously: the reflective narrator safely controlling the stage from the future, and the trapped, volatile young man living inside the memory. The younger Tom is crushed by a specific gravity, the responsibility to physically and financially support his mother and sister. This duty operates in direct opposition to his artistic ambitions and his biological imperative to flee a dying environment. Look at this photograph of a 1930s shoe factory. Tom spends his days in a warehouse identical to this, performing monotonous labor within the vast, uniform machinery of industrial capitalism. It is a system designed to erase individuality. Look at the physical fire escape attached to the tenement exterior. It serves as a literal exit route. But observe its construction. It is made of heavy iron and permanently welded to the structure of the building itself. Tom constantly uses this fire escape to step out of the apartment to smoke. It provides the illusion of escape. He leaves the physical proximity of his mother and sister, but he remains bolted to their structure. He cannot sever the psychological tether. Physical mobility does not guarantee psychological freedom. Tom eventually leaves St. Louis entirely, but his departure acts as an evasion. It is never a true escape. The primary force Tom is evading is his mother, Amanda Wingfield. She defines herself entirely by her antebellum youth in the Mississippi Delta, repeatedly citing the mythic Sunday she entertained 17 gentlemen callers. Her husband abandoned the family 16 years prior. Facing absolute poverty, Amanda uses this idealized past as a psychological shield. It is a coping mechanism for a present she cannot control. Look at the proud posture and traditional attire of these women from the era. Amanda draws her strength from this exact vision of female societal roles. She is a fierce, pragmatic caregiver, utilizing the only social capital she has to ensure her children survive an economic depression. But enforcing that dead old South reality onto a new South industrial environment makes her a suffocating narcissist. She demands her children conform to a world that no longer exists, actively crushing their actual identities in the process. She refuses to acknowledge Laura's physical and social disabilities, demanding she attract traditional suitors. She ignores Tom's severe depression, demanding he act as dutiful patriarch. This rigid denial actively sabotages their ability to function in reality. Amanda's illusion functions as the ultimate paradox. The mythological armor that keeps her alive is the exact same cage that suffocates her family. That suffocation is most evident in Laura Wingfield. She embodies extreme social anxiety and permanent stasis. She is entirely incapable of functioning within the machinery of the modern world. We see the era's pragmatic demands in this 1930s clerical class photograph. Notice the massive typewriter and the looming instructor. When Amanda forces Laura into a business college, Laura becomes physically ill and drops out. She cannot integrate into this mechanical reality. Instead, she retreats to her Glass Menagerie. These tiny, fragile figurines form a vital, protective sanctuary. They allow Laura to exist safely, engaging with a world that operates on her exact scale and fragility. That sanctuary is a dangerous emotional prison. By investing her entire existence into inanimate glass, Laura guarantees her own permanent infantilization. She remains entirely static. The core of this collection is the glass unicorn. It is a mythical creature existing among normal horses. It perfectly isolates Laura's own self-perception, unique, intensely isolated, and freakish compared to the rest of society. The narrative reaches its climax in Scene 7. Jim, the gentleman caller, dances with Laura and accidentally knocks the unicorn to the floor, breaking off its horn. The destruction strips away the animal's uniqueness, violently thrusting the figure into normalcy. The unicorn's destruction is a tragedy because Laura is not made of glass. While the broken figure might blend in with the normal horses, Laura cannot survive the violent transition into a pragmatic reality without shattering completely. Looking into the eyes of playwright Tennessee Williams, we see the deep introspection driving this text. The play operates as his autobiographical exorcism. It is a public processing of his severe survivor's guilt regarding his real-life sister, Rose, and her eventual lobotomy. Applying a feminist lens shifts the blame from Amanda's personality to systemic failure. In the economic reality of the 1930s, women without husbands or viable careers faced literal destitution. Amanda and Laura's desperation is driven by an economy that offers them zero avenues for financial independence. Through a Marxist lens, the cramped Wingfield apartment serves as a direct critique of the American dream during the Great Depression. The characters are alienated from their labor, surviving on hollow promises of upward mobility that the system will never actually deliver. Applying these critical lenses removes the burden of failure from the individuals. The Wingfields are not merely a dysfunctional family unit, they are direct casualties of failing socioeconomic systems. The play establishes a brutal dialectic. Illusions are a mandatory survival requirement for individuals dealing with severe trauma or poverty. But adopting those illusions renders the individual entirely obsolete in the real, pragmatic world. Look at this photograph of mid-century merchant sailors. Tom achieves his goal of joining the merchant marine, traveling vast geographical distances from St. Louis. Yet his final monologue reveals he is constantly haunted by the image of his sister, proving the utter futility of his physical departure. The Glass Menagerie proves that geographical distance offers no protection. We cannot outrun our pasts, because true escape is impossible when the prison is constructed from your own memory.